Michael Corleone walks into an Italian restaurant in the Bronx with a broken jaw wired shut and no weapon on his body. He has been frisked twice. Once by the corrupt police captain sitting across from him, and once by the drug dealer who tried to murder his father. Both men are confident he is harmless. But behind the cistern of an old toilet in the back of that restaurant, taped to the porcelain with electrical tape, sits a short-barreled revolver with 5 rounds in the cylinder. Clemenza put it there. And in about 4 minutes, a 25-year-old Ivy League war veteran is going to use it to kill 2 men at point-blank range, walk out the front door, and never be the same person again. That revolver is one of the most recognized props in cinema history, but almost nobody talks about what it actually is, where it came from, or what it tells us about the man carrying it, because the gun Francis Ford Coppola put in Michael Corleone's hand was never built for a killer. It was built for a man behind a desk, and it should not have existed in 1946 at all. The revolver taped behind that toilet is a Smith & Wesson Model 36. Firearms collectors know it by its original name, the Chief's Special. It holds 5 rounds of .38 special ammunition in a compact cylinder barely wider than a man's fist. The barrel is just under 2 inches long. The whole thing weighs less than 20 ounces. If you enjoy breakdowns like this, where the weapon matters as much as the man holding it, subscribe. I cover the real history behind iconic guns, scenes, and the people they transformed. This gun was not designed for war. It was not designed for street soldiers or hired killers. Smith & Wesson built it for one specific customer, police administrators, the men who ran departments, signed paperwork, attended city council meetings, and needed something small enough to forget about until the one day they hoped would never come. When the company unveiled the prototype in 1950 at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Convention in Colorado Springs, they let the attendees vote on the name. The police chiefs in that room chose to name the gun after themselves, Chief's Special, a weapon for men who gave orders, not men who carried them out. That detail matters more than you might think, because Michael Corleone, in the moment he picks up that revolver, is not a chief of anything. He is a soldier volunteering for a suicide mission to protect his father. He is the youngest son, the one who went to Dartmouth, the one who joined the Marines instead of the family business, the one who told his girlfriend Kay at the wedding that the family's methods were not his methods, and they handed him a gun designed for someone who sits behind a desk and hopes nothing ever goes wrong. The Chief's Special was the gun for the man Michael would eventually become, not the man he was when he pulled the trigger. They gave him his future in a shoulder holster. But the Model 36 did not exist until 1950. The Godfather's restaurant scene takes place in 1946, 4 years before Smith & Wesson ever manufactured the first Chief's Special. The gun in Michael's hand is a literal anachronism, a thing from the future, appearing in a moment it has no business being part of. And isn't that exactly what Michael is in that restaurant? He doesn't belong there. His broken jaw is still wired from when Captain McCluskey punched him outside the hospital. He has never killed anyone in close quarters. His brother Sonny is the violent one, the hothead, the one who was supposed to carry the family forward. Michael was supposed to become a senator, a governor, something legitimate. He is as out of place in that Bronx restaurant as a 1950 revolver in a 1946 timeline. The prop department just used what the armory had available, but Michael Corleone is a weapon from the wrong era, forced into a moment that will define everything that comes after. Now, Clemenza did not just hide the gun, he prepared it. In the film, he tells Michael that he taped the grip and the trigger. The tape serves 2 purposes. It prevents fingerprints from sticking to the metal, and it changes the feel of the weapon in a way that should have terrified Michael. When you wrap electrical tape around a revolver grip, You lose the texture of the wood or rubber. Your hand slides. Your grip becomes uncertain. For a man who has never fired this particular weapon, who is about to commit a double homicide at a dinner table, that slippery, unfamiliar feeling underneath his fingers is the last thing he needs. But Clemenza also mentions something else. He left the gun noisy. That means no suppressor, no effort to muffle the report. In a small Italian restaurant in the Bronx, a .38 special fired indoors would be deafening. The sound would bounce off tile and plaster and hit every person in the room like a physical force. Clemenza wanted that. He wanted the bang to clear the restaurant, to scatter witnesses, to create chaos that would cover Michael's exit. The weapon was not just a tool for killing, it was a tool for theater. Clemenza understood that the loudest gun in the room controls the room, and that is a lesson Michael would carry for the rest of his life, not just in the fictional arc of The Godfather, where he orchestrates the simultaneous assassination of all 5 rival family heads during his nephew's baptism, but in the broader mythology of the Corleone family, where the display of violence becomes more important than the violence itself. The Chief's special taught Michael that a gun is not just something you point and fire, it is something you perform with. Michael disobeyed his instructions. Clemenza told him to walk out of the bathroom and start firing immediately. Come out blasting, 2 shots in each man's head, drop the gun, walk out. Simple, fast, mechanical. Michael didn't do any of that. He came out of the bathroom, walked back to the table, and sat down. Sollozzo was still talking, switching between English and Italian, trying to broker a peace deal that was already dead. McCluskey was eating veal and spaghetti. Michael sat there with a loaded revolver tucked into his waistband, listening to a man negotiate for his life without knowing it. Why did he hesitate? Al Pacino's performance suggests several answers at once. Fear, moral paralysis, the physical weight of crossing a line you can never come back from. But there is a mechanical answer too, one connected to the weapon itself. The Smith & Wesson Model 36 has a 2-inch barrel. At the distance from the bathroom door to the dinner table in a small restaurant, maybe 15 to 20 feet, a snub-nosed revolver in the hands of an inexperienced shooter is not a precision instrument. The short barrel sacrifices accuracy for concealability. The fixed sights are rudimentary. The gun was designed to be used at what firearms instructors call bad breath distance, arm's length, close enough to smell the other man's cologne. Michael may have understood this instinctively, or he may have simply been afraid. Either way, by sitting back down, he guaranteed that when he pulled the trigger, the barrel would be close enough to Sollozzo's skull that missing was nearly impossible. He turned a weapon's weakness into an advantage. He compensated for the gun's limitations by eliminating the distance between himself and his targets. That is not something a panicking amateur does. That is something a Marine who has been under fire does. Michael's body knew things his conscious mind was still struggling to accept. He shot Sollozzo first, 1 round through the forehead at close range. Then he turned to McCluskey, the corrupt police captain who had broken his jaw, who had left his father unguarded in a hospital bed to be murdered. McCluskey barely had time to react before Michael fired twice. The sound of a .38 special in that enclosed space would have been like a bomb going off. Dishes shattered, diners screamed, the room emptied exactly as Clemenza had planned, and then Michael dropped the gun. That detail is critical. Clemenza told him to drop it, and this is the one instruction Michael actually followed. The Chief's special hit the tile floor of that restaurant, and with it fell every version of Michael Corleone that had existed before that moment. The war hero, the Dartmouth graduate, the man who was going to be a senator. All of it gone, clattering across the floor of a Bronx restaurant next to a revolver that shouldn't have existed yet. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. I break down the real stories behind iconic weapons and the people who carried them every week. The Smith & Wesson Model 36 was built for people who were not supposed to need a weapon. Police chiefs, administrators, men and women in positions of authority who carried a gun as a formality, a symbol of office, not an expectation of combat. The chief's special was the revolver you strapped to your ankle or tucked into a desk drawer and prayed you would never have to touch. But the weapon's actual legacy is defined by the exact opposite of its intended purpose. It became a gun for desperate, intimate acts of violence that changed history. In November 1978, Dan White walked into San Francisco City Hall carrying a Smith & Wesson Chiefs special. He used it to assassinate Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected official in California. White was a former city supervisor, a former cop, a man who should have been exactly the kind of person the Chiefs special was designed for. Instead, he used it to commit a double political assassination at point-blank range. Just like Michael at that restaurant table, White was a man from within the system, using its own tools against itself. In October 1979, the director of South Korean intelligence used the same model revolver to assassinate President Park Chung-hee during a private dinner. A man within the inner circle, using a concealed weapon at a table, killing the leader he was supposed to protect. The parallels to Michael's restaurant scene are so direct they feel scripted. Two assassinations within a year of each other, both with the Chiefs special, both committed by insiders at close range during moments of trust. The weapon designed for the man who gives orders kept ending up in the hands of the man who decides the orders are not enough anymore. The Chiefs special has a pattern. It finds its way to people at the exact moment they are about to cross an irreversible threshold. People who, minutes or years before, would never have been suspected of pulling a trigger. That is the real mythology of this revolver. It is the weapon of the turning point. The gun people reach for when they are about to become someone else entirely. And that is exactly what it does in Michael Corleone's hand. It transforms him. The novel makes this even more explicit than the film. In Mario Puzo's book, the weapon is described simply as a small, blunt-nosed gun. There are no heroics in that description, no romance. A small gun, blunt-nosed, the kind of thing you would barely notice on a table next to a glass of wine. Puzo understood that the scale of the weapon had to match the intimacy of the killing. Michael is not storming a beachhead, he is committing murder over dinner, and Puzo writes something that the film only implies. When Michael comes out of the bathroom, he remembers that Clemenza told him to start shooting immediately, but he does not. Puzo writes that Michael was not sure if it was instinct or sheer terror that stopped him. He sat back down because he felt that if he made one sudden move, he would be cut down. His legs were shaking. The great future Don of the Corleone family was so frightened that he could not stand up. The gun in his waistband was pressing against his stomach. 5 rounds, 2 targets, no room for error. A 2-inch barrel that would start losing accuracy past 10 feet. And Michael Corleone, hands trembling, jaw wired shut, sitting across from a man he was about to kill, trying to remember how to breathe. This is the reality behind cinema's most iconic act of violence. Not a cool, calculated assassination. A terrified young man with an undersized revolver and 5 chances to get it right. 5 rounds. That is all the Model 36 holds. Michael fired 3 times in the film. Once at Solozzo, twice at McCluskey. That left him 2 unfired rounds when he dropped the weapon on the floor. 2 rounds he did not need. 2 chances he did not take. And in a way, those 2 remaining bullets represent the 2 lives Michael Corleone will spend the rest of the trilogy trying and failing to protect. His first wife, Apollonia, killed by a car bomb in Sicily meant for him, and his brother Fredo, whom Michael himself will order executed on a lake in Nevada years later. The Chief's special gave him exactly enough violence to begin his transformation and left just enough unused capacity to haunt him. 5 rounds, 3 fired, 2 wasted. The math of Michael Corleone's entire life loaded into a cylinder in a Bronx bathroom in 1946. The gun they gave him was too small for a real killer and too powerful for the man he used to be. It was built for someone who would never need it and used by someone who would never recover from it. It came from a future that had not happened yet, and it sealed a fate that could never be undone. After Michael dropped that revolver on the restaurant floor, he walked out the front door and climbed into a car that would take him to a freighter bound for Sicily. He left behind a college degree, a girlfriend named Kay, a clean record, and every promise his father had made about keeping him out of the family business. All of it, traded for 3 pulls of a trigger on a gun that was never built for war. The Smith & Wesson Chiefs Special is still in production today. More than 75 years after its introduction, you can walk into a gun shop and buy one for under $1,000. It still holds 5 rounds. The barrel is still 2 inches long. It still fits in a coat pocket or behind the tank of a toilet, and everyone that rolls off the line carries the same quiet lie it has always carried. This is a weapon for someone who will never have to use it. Michael Corleone believed that lie once, before the restaurant, before the revolver, before the sound of 38 special ammunition echoing off the walls of a place where people came to eat pasta and talk about their families. He believed he was someone who would never need a gun. The Chiefs Special proved him wrong. If you want to see how a different weapon shaped a different kind of monster, click the video on screen now. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.